Hello and welcome to another.
Oh,
I don't know why I started it that way.
I love it.
Hi.
Masters.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to the Masters. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's Wednesday Wellness again. Woo. And we're here with Jen Feldman today.
Woo.
Yeah.
Hey.
One of our great friends.
No, limitless movement, right?
Limitless movement. Yeah.
Everyone knows Jen Feldman. But,
yeah.
But we brought her here anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Most of our patients, I think.
Yeah, we're all like, oh, everyone knows
yeah.
her.
A lot of overlap.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Because she's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does she do?
She helps us with our bodies. Yeah, do you want to kick us off? Tell us about...
What I do at Limitless Movement is myofascial release. And a lot of times it's paired with chiropractic because your fascia and your bones really talk together a lot. And what I'm doing is releasing adhesions from the body. So we have places where we're stuck, where we get knotted up from either sitting at an office job, not moving enough, or even when we're moving, we're making like the same movements over and over again. So our body starts to form in that position and we literally become the movements that we make. So you can see what movements people make by just looking at their bodies. When that happens, the fascia, which is this connective tissue layer in your body, so it is right under your skin all the way down to like a cellular level. It's holding you in place and it keeps your structure.
It's like the glue kind of that holds everybody together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Glue.
It's a glue. It's our glue. It's a glue.
It's a glue.
But also it's kind of like cotton candy, right?
Yeah, it is like cotton candy. It's ideally it's thin like cotton candy, and it's when you're preparing a chicken and you cut open the chicken and there's that like little cellophane layer and you're pulling it back. That's the fascia.
Telling the vegetarian. I know what you're talking about. I cook a lot of chicken.
It's kind of gross, but you want it to be really thin like that, and it's supposed to be that way, just like a pocket encasing our muscles and our bones. And when it isn't healthy, it thickens and almost like calcifies and becomes actually more similar to bone in structure, so that it's not really springy and bouncy and cotton candy like. It actually hardens and, like I said, calcifies and breaks rather than bounces.
Yeah.
So that happened to like injury or the repetitive motion or not moving, all those things.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of the things
we
that
just
you
talked about,
said, plus emotional trauma, like holding in things. A lot of it happens like in childhood, a lot from age 3 to 7 is when like our structure forms and then we start to like form our jaws and grow and our fascia
a lot of
really
like movement patterns are like established then at that point too.
Yeah. So even people who work out a lot, if you're doing the same workouts all the time, you're doing the same movements, the same lifts, the same thing, even if you're like spinning all the time, running, whatever you're doing, your fascia is going to form in that shape. So it's really good to vary your movements for that reason.
That's right.
Fascinating. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Fascinating. Yeah. That's so cheesy.
That's my favorite joke of the day.
Yeah. It's terrible.
So then what do you do to fix it?
Yeah. So it's kind of a combination of holds, slow movements, releasing it through pandiculation, which is something that animals do. Like a lot of us think about stretching as something that's super passive, but you know, animals never just like reach up and stretch or like reach down for their toes. You know, when you wake up in the morning, you contract your arms and you go like, right? Yeah. So that's pandiculation. It's where you contract as you're moving. So what I do is like have people pandiculate, they contract in the movement, and then I feel where their fascia is tense and bound up, and we release through that. So,
was it painful?
No, not at all. It's the pandiculation part and the unwinding is really great because it allows me to not like dig into the skin and get really deep in there, which is what you would have to do to actually feel deep enough into the fascia to get a lot of movement. So it's either just hands on skin and movement through the superficial fascia, or it's unwinding and pandiculating. And
it's kind of like a workout. I've gone to Jen, so I've had like experience. But it is like you're kind of like pushing against like what she's doing. So it's kind of like she's stretching you like taffy when it's moving good. When it's not moving good, it's like like very rigid, but yeah.
Exactly. I usually describe it as like the first time people really stretch. And that's the feeling. Is like you feel like you're just getting a really deep, satisfying stretch as you're moving, rather than just waiting for 2 years to touch your toes.
Oh yeah.
Right.
It's like, the deepest stretches. I feel like, and it feels amazing, and it's not dangerous because you're contracting and you're facilitating that muscle movement. Then you're like stretching with it, right? So you're not just like stretching against stretched out muscles.
Right. If someone's just pulling on your arm or pulling on your leg, there's a chance that your ligaments or tendons could be strained because they're just pulling you into end range of motion. But when you're contracting and pendiculating, then actually you cannot be pulled into end range.
Okay.
And so that's like the really cool safety mechanism that the body does that way. That's why animals don't really overstretch either. For that reason.
Yeah.
What, cool. Do you like a certain clientele? Do you specialize in anything? You know, or use anything, anyone?
I'll see anyone. I really love working with like chronic injuries and people that have tried everything and then they're like, I'm hopeless.
Right.
I'm like, let me give you hope. That's really great. I do a lot with pregnant women. I also love that. That's why we have a lot of clients that we share, and I recommend, you know, like I think myofascial release and chiropractic is really great that way, because especially with pregnant women whose bodies are constantly changing, when they get their tissue released and then they go get adjusted, like their adjustments will hold a little bit longer and will be a little better that way. So that's a really great combination. Really the full spectrum of clients, but chronic injuries is really like what I'm passionate about,
and like athletes too, right? I know a lot of
for sure.
I know I send a lot of athletes.
Well, they have a lot of chronic injuries.
Exactly. A lot of movement pattern issues in that repetitive motion and like laying down the fascia in the same way over and over and over again.
And is it like a treatment plan? Is it, you know, people always want to know, like, how many times do I have to go? I know everyone's different.
That's my least favorite question.
I know,
ever.
same, right? I know, like,
you guys get the same thing.
How good do you want to feel in your life?
Yeah, exactly. How good do you want to feel in your life is the question. So, you know, for me, it can take from 1 to 4 sessions to just get out of pain.
Sure.
Totally.
Yes.
And then it depends, like, how much do you want to upgrade your body?
Right.
So if you're an athlete, do you want to actually like get better and perform better and move faster? If you're a pregnant mom, do you want to, you know, keep this level consistently throughout your pregnancy and have a really good birth?
Right.
Like, you know, with pregnant women, I usually see them once a month. So it's not like a big commitment that way. I usually see people just based on my schedule and their schedule once a month for a few months.
Right. Okay.
Cool. So unless, you know, you want to be a whole new person.
Right.
And
who doesn't?
Right. And weekly. Let's go.
No one's weekly, but you know, then you could do it longer than a few months.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, let's talk about so some of the stuff that you do with like pregnant women and with like postpartum and stuff too.
I'm super passionate just because I had a baby 2 years ago and had my own experience with my body. But the really interesting thing about pregnancy is, like I said, your body is constantly changing. So you really have a different body every week of your pregnancy, as you guys know. Yeah. And that's why it's really good to see chiropractic regularly, to get body work regularly, to just approach your body like it's a new body every time you are basically every week as you're growing. And something that's really interesting about birth and pregnancy is that you really want to keep like your center of gravity consistent throughout your pregnancy. Right. And I think it's a really big deal to get your pelvis basically put back in alignment as much as possible to make sure that you don't have too much of an anterior rotation in your pelvis so that the baby is actually feeling the center of gravity. You don't want to be, I always say this, like you want to like have your baby expand this way in your body, not out this way. And so doing that and keeping your pelvis in a neutral position, that's mostly what I do with pregnant women is trying to keep their hamstrings long enough, getting their psoas released, keeping their upper body really open so that they can just stand. It's basically how much can I keep you upright throughout this pregnancy. And the other cool thing that prevents is breech, because there's center of gravity and there's enough room for the baby to flip, and then B, for them to feel the gravity that like this is down, this is where we're going. So
cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know that's a lot of the work that you guys do. Yeah. So here it's like,
but it's so, I mean, the like vertical hamstrings and psoas, it's, you know, because your center of gravity is like your belly's changing and stuff, and then nobody uses their glutes, and so
Yes.
and then we sit so much too, because when you're pregnant you're tired and like you don't want to move as much, and so
yeah, and if you think about it too, just the pull forward is actually pulling your hamstring short
exactly
as you're walking, and that you're not extending enough. So that's, I mean, I say hamstrings all the time, it's the biggest thing, but like if there's one thing that anyone can change in their body that would be helpful is like just lengthening your hamstrings.
Yeah. And relaxing that psoas, being able to tuck your pelvis again. Yeah.
Do you get that, everybody?
Yeah.
Lengthen your hamstring.
Your hamstring.
But not passively.
Not passively.
Let's talk about with kids too, because you do work with kids and like oral ties and like tension and stuff too. So it's really cool because the bottom of the tongue is fascia. Like that's when they're cutting the tie, that's what they're cutting. They're not cutting muscle.
Right.
They're cutting the fascia away. So that tethered tissue, that pull down, it's that midline dysfunction is actually happening all the way down into your feet, which is why you can see with the tethered babies that they like curl their feet and you can see the fascial tension in there. So it's really helpful to get body work and release before the tie is released so that you can release that whole fascial line that comes from the tongue. And then it's also really helpful after to help reorient yourself to your new fascial tether. Right. And I think that's the part that people don't really talk about a lot. I had a tongue tie release myself a few months ago, and that's what I noticed for myself was the biggest thing was like, oh no, I have a new fascial tether. Everything is like a little bit off. How do I get adjusted to this new body? Rather than just like, oh, well, I got my tongue tie released and now my life is just great.
Well, that's what, like I think a lot of parents think with a baby, even though like, I think the dentists are good, like, hey, you need to get work done, but I don't know how, like, enforced it is, right? And so they come here, or maybe they go to you, or they go to craniosacral, and it's like, they have to relearn everything. Yeah. Like, that all started in utero. Like, it didn't just, like, they popped out. And right. And as an adult, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's such a strong tether that when I release, I'll do tongue pulls on people and, like, release the fascia that way. And as I do that, you can feel where the tether was. Yeah. And then you can feel the new tether, and you're feeling them both at the same time. So it's almost like releasing like the phantom tether. Yeah. Right. And it's like still there, even though it was released. Yeah. The body's still trying to pull down at that spot. So if you think about that for the babies as well, they're doing better, they're breastfeeding and all this stuff, but they're still feeling like a fascial pull down this way. And that's what you see, like still their mouth hanging open or the tongue hanging out in the bottom of the mouth, or still having some issues. So I recommend all the therapies for oral ties, myofunctional therapy, chiropractic, myofascial release, craniosacral, all the things. Like it's really,
we're working with the nervous system a lot when we're doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. Because also like you have nerve endings that are coming through that fascia too. And so a lot of that neuromotor control, like if you just cut it, it's disrupting a lot of that neuromotor control. So even just cutting the tether isn't necessarily going to release the tongue to the top of the mouth. Like you said, it's still tethered there, like that phantom tether, but so much of that is like neuromotor control too, and how they've learned to move their tongue. And so doing like the body work and stuff helps with a lot of that. But yeah, it's a much more complex issue than just clipping some tissue.
It's much more complex than that. And of course, I say as having a baby who had an oral tie myself, it's like, yes, get it done and do all that. I think it's more complicated as an adult. I would recommend like a ton of body work and waiting and a lot of therapy and all of that before you just
get it done.
Just do stuff. Because it is like a surgery. And
did it release any like emotional stuff or like...
For me, I've had like so much body work that I didn't feel like it released a lot of emotional work, but I have heard that from other people that they did that. But I think anytime you cut through fascia, because the fascial system stores so much emotion and trauma in our body, that you're going to have an experience like that. Like you're going to have some release, there's some movement through that. Yeah. So a lot of my sessions are a lot about emotional release as well, and you know, I kind of joke about that, like it's okay to cry, and like it's weird if you don't.
It's weird if you. Why are you crying? I'm feeling a lot of things here. Why aren't you crying? That would be me.
I think I only cried when you stood on my hamstrings.
That can be something.
Oh my god.
happening. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, thank
Anything
you.
else you want to share with the people?
Um,
Tell them how to find you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can find me at thefasciacenter.com or on Instagram at thefasciacenter. And yes, I'm located in Grand Rapids.
Yeah. And we have all our contact info too.
Yes,
So
we have it all here.
ask us and we'll send you her way. Yeah.
Great. Thanks
All right.
for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks
awesome.
for
Thank you for
coming.
coming.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. Woohoo.
Bye, guys.
Bye.